Good morning, followers of the Jack Dallas channel. Just wanted to jump into a topic fairly quickly today, which is one that I haven't, I guess, covered all that much on my channel, but it's one which deeply concerns me, which is civil asset forfeiture laws as well as policing for profit in general. um, this is a topic in which I could probably do like a 6 hour video on or a series of videos, but I'm going to keep it rather short just to talk about this one specific topic. Um, just to give some quick background, uh, civil asset forfeiture is a huge problem because what we're doing is we're turning police work into something which is motivated by money and therefore motivated by essentially, uh, criminal intent, I would say. The police are essentially now being used as the strong arm of the government to fund other operations. Therefore, rather than motivating police to do real investigative work, to solve violent crimes, to try to make our streets actually safer, we have now turned the police into nothing more than essentially a band of robbers, no different than a group of burglars that might rob houses or rob banks. This is what we've turned the police into by essentially linking their success and their income to their ability to steal money from the people that they're supposed to be protecting. And that is why the police are the largest gang in America today. Now, getting back to the point here, there's a new device. You've maybe heard this covered in some other alternative media sources, so I just kind of want to gloss over this and have this be something that if you haven't heard about, this is kind of like your new thing to learn today. So there's this new device called an ERAD reader. Um, Essentially, police can use it to scan different types of cards, like ATM cards, prepaid gift cards, things like that, and get information about them. That's the short version. Now, a couple things I wanted to point out down here. This is pretty key. Each reader costs the state $5,000, $1,500 for training, and the state gives the manufacturer a royalty, 7.7% of all funds forfeited. Now, with the cost involved of being $6,500 for each functioning reader, plus the fact that the company receives a 7.7% royalty, wouldn't you say the state has a motivation to go out there and use these things? I would definitely say so. Now, what concerns me is that the police are not looking at ways to solve actual violent crimes. They are not looking for new methods of going out after the criminals that cause the most actual damage to our society as a whole. What I notice is that they're using their technology and their resources to try to find a way to raise their own bottom line. And it seems to me that their energy is being focused on ways to gain cash and money and steal it from people rather than protect those people. There's not really any money in solving a robbery or in solving a murder, but there's a lot of money in pulling over a car and stealing $100,000, even though there's nothing illegal about having money. Now, this is something that I recommend everybody go out and research some more on their own. We have to remember that this, and I think that they put this actually pretty well in the article. There's somewhere in here a quote about this, but basically saying, um, we've taken the whole concept of innocent until proven guilty and just completely flipped it around. You know what I mean? So it's basically like these people can have some kind of like a bunch of cards on them or a bunch of cash. You have all these things that are not inherently illegal, but the police are finding methodology as well as technology to justify what is literally highway robbery. I mean, they're pulling you over. They are not accusing you of a crime. They are not suspicious that you are committing a crime. And yet now, even if you don't have cold hard cash on you, which in and of itself isn't illegal anyway, they still have the right to scan through all of your information. They still have the right to steal from you. Now, what I find interesting is that the police claim, and this is just complete bullshit, just what they throw in there, that this is to somehow prevent identity theft. I don't really understand how the two go together. This is obviously just an excuse. But at the same time, Do we really want police having access to all of our information with all the hacks that we hear about every day, knowing that the NSA is storing all this information, knowing that the government is completely incapable of keeping us safe and of keeping our information out of the wrong hands, especially when you hear about cases like this where the police completely mess up and steal tens of thousands of dollars from innocent people? Are these the people that we've decided have the moral high ground, the moral authority to decide who is a criminal and who isn't? Because we've completely removed the guilty aspect of criminality. At this point, if you have something the police want, namely money, you are just a criminal so that they can take it. This is no longer about who is actually committing a violent crime and who is actually affecting society. This is about money and how can we find more ways to justify taking the money, and how can we find more methods of taking your money at the same time. It's not about crime. It's not about safety. It's about the bottom line. And if you go through some of these articles and you Google this, you'll see there's all kinds of examples of abuse. One prosecutor used money from a civil asset forfeiture case to pay off student loans. We've got tons of cases of officers taking bribes, trying to intimidate suspects into giving them cash during investigations, things like that. I mean, you can find hundreds of examples of this on the internet, you guys. And it just makes me say, are these the people that we've decided to give the moral high ground to? And as I was researching this topic, reading the last Huffington Post article, of course, you guys might want to come across this video and this recent article. I'm not going to play the video because my computer will probably explode, and it is actually quite graphic and disturbing, but here we have footage of a police officer pulling over a teenager, and if you watch the video you will see the teenager was being a bit difficult but not doing anything illegal. He was simply asking why he had been pulled over, what was going on. He asked multiple times if he was under arrest. He didn't really try to fight back. He was then tasered. And you will see in the video, while he was handcuffed after being tasered, he was thrown onto the ground. He suffered some damage to his heart. He suffered brain damage. You can hear him moaning in the video. This officer has now been sentenced to 4 years in prison. And it turns out, if you read down at the bottom of the article, the officer smelled marijuana. And it turned out that the teenager had a small amount of marijuana on him. And so I'll put this to you guys. Is it worth it to you to have this teenager's life now affected and severely downgraded, his quality of life, for decades to come? Hasn't even hit the age of 20 yet, and he now has brain damage and damage to his heart because of a small amount of marijuana. Does that sound like an even trade-off? I'm putting this to you guys. I'd love to know what you think. Is it worth ruining this child's life so that we could find a small amount of marijuana on him? Was this justifiable? The courts say no. I'm going to go ahead and say no, but I'll put this to you guys. And after you think about that, tell me, are these the people that you think should be deciding who is a criminal and who isn't? Are these the people that you want in charge of your money, including your ATM and your credit cards, the second you get pulled over for no reason whatsoever? This officer claimed that after running the tags of his car that he thought it was connected to another case. That turned out to be false. I think we can pretty much go ahead and assume he was lying and that he just pulled over this teenager because he was a kid and he wanted to mess with him. And now his life is essentially ruined. This officer will be out of jail in 4 years, and let me just say, if it was the other way around, if some civilian had come along and tasered the cop for assaulting and nearly killing this kid, that person would probably be in jail for life. And so we have to ask ourselves, are these the values that we adhere to? And if not, should we be allowing these people to determine who is a criminal and what justifies being treated as one? Or should this be left up to somebody else? I think the police have gotten completely out of control. Policing for profit has gotten completely out of control. And violence like what you can witness here is exactly the result of these increased powers. So guys, this is Jack Dallas, and we'll talk again real soon.